Excellency Ambassador Febrian Rudiat, Director General for Multilateral Cooperation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. His Excellency Ambassador Peter Thompson, the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. Bapak Profesor Syarif Wijaya, Chairman of Agency for Marine and Fisheries Research and Human Resource of the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Mas Ahmad Santosa, CEO of Indonesian Ocean Justice Initiative. Mr. Gunnar Stolzvik, Policy Director on Transnational Organized Crime at the Norwegian Ministry of Trade and Fisheries. Mr. Per Erik Berg, Coordinator of Stop Illegal Fishing. Ibu Stefanie Juwana, Director of International Engagement and Policy Reform of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. Distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all guests and participants to today's webinar titled Ending IUU Fishing, Exploring the Opportunities of International Coalition of Action. My name is Adlilah Chianas, and I will be the Master of Ceremony for today. Today's webinar will be moderated by the Director for International Engagement and Policy Reform of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative, Ibu Stefanie Juwana. This webinar is jointly organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, along with the Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. Allow me to briefly inform you about the order of events for today, which will include a keynote speech by the Director General for Multilateral Cooperation, Ambassador Febrian Rudiat, keynote speech by the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean, Ambassador Peter Thompson, presentation by the Chairman of Agency for Marine and Fisheries Research and Human Resource of the Ministry of Marine and Fisheries Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Profesor Syarif Wijaya, presentation by the Policy Director on Transnational Organized Crime at the Norwegian Ministry of Trade and Fisheries, Mr. Gunnar Stolzvik, presentation by the CEO of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative, Bapak Mas Ahmad Santosa, presentation by the Coordinator of Stop Illegal Fishing, Mr. Per Erik Berg, questions and answer sessions, and closing. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the agenda, I would like to kindly ask all guests and participants attending in the room to silence and/or turn off your mobile phones to help the webinar running smoothly. For guests and participants joining us through Zoom and YouTube, I would like to ask for your kind cooperation to mute your microphone during the remainder of the webinar and kindly fill out the form on tinyurl.com/endiuu to send your questions to the panelists. Let me repeat that once more. It's tinyurl.com/endiuu to send your questions to all the panelists. We kindly ask all participants to refrain from sending messages on the chat room, as the chat room will be used by the committee to send out information for all participants, including the link to send the questions to the panelists. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin the webinar, allow me to invite Ambassador Febrian Rudiat, Director General for Multilateral Cooperation, to deliver the keynote speech for today's event. Ambassador Febrian, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Syarif Wijaya, Chairman of Agency for Marine and Fisheries Research and Human Resources, Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Ambassador Peter Thompson, UN Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean, Pak Dr. Mas Ahmad Santosa, CEO of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative, Pak Gunnar Stolzvik, Policy Director on Transnational Organized Crime, the Norwegian Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, and Pak Per Erik Berg, Coordinator of Stop Illegal Fishing. Moderator and participant, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and greeting from Jakarta. Let me first welcome you to this webinar entitled Ending IUU Fishing, Exploring the Opportunity of International Coalition of Action. This webinar is jointly organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries in collaboration with Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. Today's topic derived from the global concern, mounting over time, which have brought upon significant negative impact to the ocean sector. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is surely a regional and global threat to sustainable fisheries, fishing communities, marine ecosystem, and societies. According to the Southeast Asia Fisheries Development Center, IUU fishing threaten the sustainability of global fisheries in both national jurisdiction and the high seas. Not only limited to fish, the issue of IUU fishing is closely related to human rights violation, forced labor, tax evasion, piracy, and drug weapons, illegal trade, and human trafficking. This is why the issues fall under the category of transnational organized crime in fisheries. Ladies and gentlemen, combating illegal fishing practices and its related crime is still one of the focuses of the Indonesian government currently. IUU fishing accounts for 20% of the world catch and even up to 50% in some areas. If it threatens the sustainability of global fisheries in national coastal waters as well as in the high seas, causes enormous economic losses to coastal developing countries, disrupt the social and environmental situation of coastal communities, and it also intensifies the effect of climate change on marine resources due to frequent use of destructive fishing gear. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has also been an increase in IUU fishing practices in several countries. Fishing has become less profitable during the pandemic due to the restriction on fishing. Many coastal countries have also reduced monitoring, control, and surveillance effort due to budget cuts. Therefore, it requires support and collaboration from all countries in the world, especially countries that have coastline. For this to happen, all countries must be able to have understanding on this issue. The increasingly adverse impact of IUU fishing reflects directly on fish stock, the marine environment, food security, and livelihood. Vulnerable coastal community dependent on artisanal fishing have experienced increased economic dislocation, increased level of poverty, and associated food insecurity. Limited alternative livelihood options have made them engage in illegal activities to generate income. Given the importance of fishing for the economy, food security, and sustainable growth, it is critical to work cooperatively on initiatives to prevent and combat IUU fishing. Various strategies have been developed and implemented to prevent and combat IUU fishing in recent years. One of the efforts is by issuing global recommendation for handling illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing through recommendation formulated in the blue papers under the framework of the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy. Blue paper 15 and 16 specifically discuss comprehensively on the matter of IUU fishing and transnational organized crime in fisheries. It summarizes the latest science, integrate modern thinking about innovative marine solutions, as well as focuses on the implication of economic development and social welfare of developing countries. To prevent and combat IUU fishing, the countries should also be encouraged to strengthen their relevant domestic policies and legal frameworks by pursuing the following lines of action to achieve the objective: exchange of information regarding traceability and monitoring, control and surveillance of fishing activities, promote collaboration with relevant regional and international fisheries bodies, and capacity building through technical assistance and training on catch certificate and traceability. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to welcome our distinguished panelists here today virtually, representing a critical part of our global and multi-stakeholder coalition. I hope today's discussion could help us in identify problem, produce solution, and tackle this issue effectively, and most importantly, to garner support from international community to combat this criminal act. I wish all of you have a productive and insightful discussion today, and rest assured, the government of Indonesia is and will always stay committed to fight IUU fishing and other crimes related to it. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Ambassador Fabrian. And now I would like to kindly ask Ambassador Peter Thompson to also deliver the keynote speech. Ambassador Peter, the screen is yours.
Selamat pagi. Greetings to all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sending this message to you from lockdown in London, and I trust that wherever you are situated, that you and your loved ones are safe and well during these troubling times. I'm grateful to the Indonesian Ocean Justice Initiative for the invitation to address you today. And I was delighted when I heard from my friend Masa Ahmad Santosa of IOJI's formation as an independent think tank and policy advocacy group for the provision of evidence-based ocean governance. Great strides have been made on behalf of the better governance of the ocean, through UNCLOS, through SDG 14, through the UN Ocean Conference, and many other international agreements. But it would be misguided to imagine we're now sailing on course to the re-establishment of a harmonious relationship with the ocean. SDG 14.1 and SDG 14.2 on the prevention of marine pollution and better management of marine and coastal ecosystems are far from their goal. Yes, there are great efforts being made to get on top of the source-to-sea pollution, and coverage of marine protected areas is creeping upwards. But marine plastic pollution, both what we can see with the naked eye and the microplastics that we can't, is everywhere, littering the tide lines, caught up in coral reefs, swirling in great ocean gyres, ingested by sea creatures, and trashing the seafloor. Meanwhile, SDG 14.3 on minimizing the effects of ocean acidification is indeed being addressed, and there is now enhanced scientific cooperation on it. But the rate of ocean acidification is continuing its upward trend. Take this together with the worsening trends of deoxygenation and warming, and the emerging difficulties for life in the ocean become apparent. Only the drastic curbing of anthropogenic greenhouse gases, with which we continue to poison ourselves and our environment, will stop that trend. Biodiversity loss, declining ocean health, and climate change are inseparable, and it is thus that the Glasgow UNFCCC COP in November next year assumes such existential import for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, SDG 14.5's target of conserving by 2020 10% of the coastal and marine areas is closing in on success, thanks to Tristan da Cuna's declaration last month of the Atlantic's largest MPA. But what marine science is now making clear to us is that 10% is insufficient, and that the CBD's post-2020 global biodiversity framework should include provision for 30% of the environment to be protected by 2030. As I'm sure IOJI members appreciate, percentages of MPA coverage are not the be-all and end-all. Once established, MPAs must be effectively governed to make the desired positive impact. And I commend to IOJI your further attention to this issue in your work stream dedicated to enforcement support. On the subject of marine protection, I should mention that prospects for an improvement in the ocean's health were dealt a big blow 2 months ago, when the member states of CAMLA once again failed to adopt the 3 giant Antarctica MPAs that would have delivered us the universally agreed target of SDG 14.5. Ladies and gentlemen, when we reach the consensus to bind ourselves to painstakingly negotiated international agreements, we must honor their intent and the obligations they confer upon us. When you get down to it, the alternative to staying true to our agreements is basically a selfishly motivated, haphazard progression towards an unsustainable world. It is from this perspective that I strongly applaud IOJI's purposeful work to promote policies taking us to good and sustainable ocean governance. As an example of consensually agreed international goals, one that is vital to achieving good and sustainable ocean governance, let's look at SDG 14.6, which calls upon us to end harmful fisheries subsidies by the end of 2020. We're now in the last month of 2020, so what are our chances? The answer is that they lie in the hands of our negotiators at the WTO in Geneva, who have been diligently working to complete the task. We must now watch this space in the days ahead and whatever results emerge this month. Whatever they are, we know that this is always going to be ongoing work. For SDG 14.6 is low-hanging fruit for the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, and the absurd unsustainability of subsidizing industrial fleets to build further overcapacity, even as fish stocks decline, is something even a primary school student can comprehend. This leads me to two other SDG 14 targets that relate to fish stocks. Firstly, SDG 14B, which calls for improved access of small-scale artisanal fishers to marine resources and markets. This is directly linked to SDG 14.6 on subsidies, because, as I mentioned, it is the industrial fishing fleets of the world that are in the main gobbling up the harmful subsidies. And it is the traditional marine resources of the small-scale artisanal fishers that are in turn being gobbled up by these industrial fleets. So it is plain that success in SDG 14.6 will greatly improve the chances of success for 14B by restoring the fishing resources of small-scale fishers. The second fish stock-related target is that of SDG 14.4, calling upon us by 2020 to effectively regulate harvesting and end overfishing, IUU fishing, and destructive fishing practices, as well as implementing science-based management plans to restore fish stocks in the shortest time feasible. Here at the close of 2020, we can point to progress, but we cannot claim we've hit the target when we see in the latest FAO Sophia report that of those commercial stocks assessed, we are overfishing at a rate of 34.2%. There is strong evidence that effectively managed fisheries regimes produce the desired results of fish stock sustainability. The corollary is that weakly managed RFMOs result in overfishing, and it therefore comes as no surprise to learn that the majority of the aforementioned 34.2% occurs in inadequately financed RFMOs of the South. SDG 14.4's call to end IUU fishing by 2020 was always going to be ambitious. As I've said before, it's a bit like saying we will end crime. Until some utopian future is arrived at, crime will be with us. But we can get it under control, we can reduce its negative effects, we can correct wrongdoers, and we can punish criminals. Illegal fishing is theft. It's theft from communities, from countries, and from nature itself. It's theft at a grand scale, with over $20 billion worth of illegal fish coming to the market every year, representing about 1 in every 5 fish pulled from the ocean. It's theft from good management of fish stocks, and with FAO telling us that management is the best form of conservation, we see that illegal fishing mounts a blatant challenge to the proper conservation and sustainable use of the ocean's resources. No mention of illegal fishing should be made without promotion of FAO's Port States Measures Agreement. As I'm sure you're well aware, PSMA is the first binding international agreement to specifically target illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, with its objective of eliminating illegal fishing by preventing vessels engaged in IUU fishing from using ports and landing their catches. The PSMA reduces the incentive of such vessels to continue to operate, while at the same time blocking fishery products derived from IUU fishing from reaching national and international markets. The PSMA now has 67 signatories, including the European Union, which with its 28 members brings the total count of signatories to 95 countries in practice. This is good progress, but we should keep the pressure on those island and coastal countries that have yet to sign up. Surely every government sees it is in our common interest to have an agreement without loopholes and backdoor skullduggery, so that we can eradicate the scourge of this crime. But ladies and gentlemen, it is more the effective implementation of PSMA provisions that requires greater pressure from us all. Lack of port inspection facilities and resources, and the existence of corrupt administrations prey upon the proper functioning of PSMA's provisions. Those involved in catching and purveying illegal catches know how to exploit weak management regimes, in particular those of developing countries lacking the capacity for effective monitoring, control, and surveillance. Rather than pointing fingers here, what is required is capacity building, resource allocation, and a spirit of trust and partnership amongst the parties committed to positive action in support of PSMA's implementation. IUU fishing concerns all aspects and stages of the capture and utilization of fish, and it may sometimes be associated with organized crime, with serious consequences for marginalized coastal communities. The ecological impact of IUU fishing makes it a factor in the collapse of local fisheries, with small-scale fisheries in developing countries proving particularly vulnerable. For all these reasons, I encourage IOJI to double down on its efforts to promote the effective implementation of the Port State Measures Agreement, locally, regionally, and in international fora, as an essential element of good and sustainable ocean governance in the post-COVID-19 era. Ladies and gentlemen, you may recall that back in February this year, IOJI and the World Resources Institute held a seminar in Jakarta to present international research findings on IUU fishing and transnational organized crime in the global fishing industry. The results of the same research findings are outlined in a paper which has been incorporated into a global report prepared by the High-Level Panel for a Sustainable Ocean Economy, the so-called Ocean Panel. I'm sure you're aware that the Ocean Panel is made up of 14 serving heads of state and government, amongst whom is President Joko Widodo of Indonesia. 2 years ago, the Ocean Panel set out to develop a transformative set of recommendations to deliver a sustainable ocean economy that would benefit people everywhere and effectively protect the ocean. Along the way, they found it was possible to produce as much as 6 times more food from the ocean, generate 40 times more renewable energy, lift millions of people out of poverty, and contribute 1/5 of the GHG emission reductions needed to stay within 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming. It's very commendable that as a result of their research and collaboration, all 14 leaders of the Ocean Panel have agreed that by 2025, their countries will sustainably manage 100% of the ocean area under their national jurisdictions, guided by sustainable ocean plans. I sincerely hope their example will encourage all other coastal and ocean states to commit to the 100% goal with a view to all national waters being sustainably managed by 2030. On December 3rd, this week, the Ocean Panel will present to the world the results of its work in a globally relevant transition report. The report captures a synthesis of knowledge on the 16 topics the Ocean Panel identified for action, for which 16 teams of global experts, over 200 authors from nearly 50 countries, were commissioned. The teams reviewed and analyzed the latest knowledge on the topics under their purview and provided new thinking and perspectives on how technology and policy and governance and finance can be applied to catalyze a more sustainable and prosperous relationship with the ocean. I wish to acknowledge that Indonesia's Professor Syarif Wijaja and the IOJI's Mas Ahmad Santosa were co-lead authors of 2 of the Ocean Panel's papers covering IUU fishing and transnational organized crimes in the fisheries sector. I'm confident that with the open publication this week of the results of the work of the Ocean Panel and the hundreds of experts commissioned to support it, that there will be a seminal moment in the development of the global sustainable blue economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to close my remarks by referring to a paper written by a group of the world's leading marine scientists that was published last week in the Wiley Online Library. The paper is entitled Evolving the Narrative for Protecting a Rapidly Changing Ocean Post-COVID-19. And I commend it to you because it helps us all to speak the same language when we talk about what lies ahead for ocean action. The key points it makes are as follows. When we move into the post-COVID-19 world, new policy decisions will need to be made. Some, especially those developed prior to the pandemic, will require changes to their trajectories. Others will emerge as a response to this global event. Reconnecting with nature, and specifically with the ocean, will take more than good intent and wishful thinking. Thus, words and how we express our connection to the ocean are critical to our understanding of the work at hand. The paper puts forward an evolution of ocean narrative aimed at preserving and expanding options and opportunities for future generations and a healthier planet. It articulates them around 6 themes. 1, all life is dependent on the ocean. 2, by harming the ocean, we harm ourselves. 3, by protecting the ocean, we protect ourselves. 4, humans, the ocean, biodiversity, and climate are inextricably linked. 5, ocean and climate action must be undertaken together. And 6, reversing ocean change needs action now. The new narrative adopts a One Health approach to protecting the ocean, and I quote directly from it where it says the whole Earth-ocean system must be, quote, addressed for better and more equitable social, cultural, economic, and environmental outcomes at its core. Speaking with one voice through a narrative that captures the latest science, concerns, and linkages to humanity is a precondition to action by elevating humankind's understanding of our relationship with planet ocean and why it needs to become a central theme to everyone's lives. We only have one ocean. We must protect it now. There is no ocean B. End of quote. The reality of there being one ocean on this blue planet is central. Migrating fish and rising sea levels do not recognize our geographic nomenclatures, EEZ boundaries, and other such human constructs. Thus, when it comes to the ocean, just as is the case for biodiversity and climate change, we're all in this together. Subject to the same laws of nature, and global cooperation is the only remedy. Perhaps this will be the most positive change to emerge from the economic and human trauma of the COVID-19 pandemic, that humanity will at long last internalize that we are indeed all connected, human to human, human to nature, and that the best way of protecting ourselves is to protect the ocean and nature's biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you know, the holding of the next UN Ocean Conference to be held in Lisbon has been postponed, with confirmed dates to be announced once the course of the COVID-19 pandemic is clearer. In the meantime, step-by-step preparations for the conference are proceeding, and there are many things about it which are already certain. One is that science, innovation, partnerships, and solutions will be infused into the work of the conference. This is guaranteed, for the UN member states in their wisdom decided as such in designating the conference theme. The second is the fact that the progress of eradicating IUU fishing will be closely examined. This is so because SDG 14 covers IUU fishing and the target matures in 2020. Along with the other 2020 targets, it will therefore be called to account at the conference. I hope to see you in Lisbon at the conference, either in person or virtually, that we may gather together once more in our common purpose of scientifically managing the resources and well-being of the ocean. Thank you for your attention to my words. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Ambassador Peter. Before we proceed with the following agenda, I would like to once again remind distinguished participants to send questions for our esteemed panelists today on tinyurl.com/endiuu. And now I would like to kindly ask Ibu Stephanie to moderate the following discussion. Ibu Stephanie, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I am Stephanie Juana from Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. And we have a very interesting topic today. And our discussion today is actually a follow-up of the initiative by the Indonesian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Indonesian Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries to explore the formation of a global coalition of actions to combat IUU fishing, which has been initiated since last year. And before we start with our speakers today, I'd like to highlight several important points from Ambassador Rudyard and Ambassador Thompson's keynote speech. Ambassador Rudyard highlighted some priority actions to achieve the objective of ending IUU fishing, which include the implementation of the Port State Measures Agreement, information exchange, increase of coordination within the country, collaboration with relevant regional and also international bodies, and also capacity building. And I'd like to also highlight Ambassador Thompson's statement that even though we are quite far from achieving SDG 14.4 target this year, but several initiatives have also been established, and what we need to do is to build upon those initiatives to create a stronger network of collaboration. And I think it will be very interesting to have those important points to be discussed further with our speakers. Now I'd like to turn over the time to our first speaker, Professor Sharif Wijaya, the head of the Research and Human Resources Agency of the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. And Professor Wijaya is also the lead author of the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy, Blue Paper 15, titled IUU Fishing and Associated Drivers. Professor Wijaya, the time is yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Ms. Stephanie Juana, the Director of International Engagement and Policy Reform, IOG. First of all, it's an honor for me to have the opportunity to share the information and knowledge about the IUU fishing. I would like to appreciate the Excellency Febrian Rudyat, Director General of Multilateral Cooperation of the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, and also His Excellency Peter Thompson, UN Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean, and our colleague, Dr. Mas Ahmad Santosa, CEO of the IOG. It's a long time not to see. Yeah, and also other resource persons who has the opportunity to share this in this event. I would like to ask my papers. Yeah. Okay. Well, in 2018, the government of Republic of Indonesia has the opportunity to join the high-level panels for the sustainable ocean economy. And we also joined the expert group and participating in the two of the blue papers, yeah, produced by the high-level panel. First is about the IUU fishing and associated drivers, and secondly about the ocean-related crimes, yeah, which Dr. Mas Ahmad Santoso is also the author of this paper. Myself, Sharif Wijaya, I'm the Su-Sherpa from the government of Republic of Indonesia in the high-level panels activities meeting, yeah. And in this opportunity, I would like to share the concept of IUU fishing and associated drivers, which we have already published in the International Food Journal and also circulated among all the HLB member states. Next. First of all, we have to remind that the World State of Capture Fisheries and Aquaculture Production 1950-2018 reported by the FAO, yeah, to 2020, mentioning about the capture fisheries has become a static as fish are fully exploited while overfishing reached 34.2% in 2017. So the yellow lines is actually capture fisheries. You can see that the growth of the production of the capture fisheries is steady, and now is disrupted by the illegal fishing as also. So this is dangerous for our ocean and also for the food supply for the people of the world. Next. And then we also should take consideration about the importance of fish to global food security. The increasing population of the people from the 20 billion, yeah, in 1950 to become around from 6 to 9 billion, yeah, peoples to 2018, and now the position of the per capita apparent consumption of the fish is also increased. So we have a higher risk in the future is the shortage of the fish supply for the growth of the population of the world. So next, I would like to also touching about the scale of problem of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities. Next. As the Ambassador Peter Thompson mentioning that the loss of the annual global loss due to the IUU fishing are valued between 10 to 23.5 billion US dollar per year, 2009. Now move to increase 15.5 to 36.4 billions US dollar in 2017. And only in Pacific Ocean, the account amount to 7 million tons or 8.3 billion US dollar per year. This is a kind of the loss of the global loss due to the IUU fishing all over the world. Next. Other thing is about the biodiversity loss. For example, in the Arafura Seas has become a hotspot for IUU fishing operation of shrimp trawl and fish net. In certain area, certain region, and certain species like shrimp, the impact of the IUU fishing is greater than in the world because they are taking all the shrimps in the Arafura Seas. Next. They also have social issues due to the IUU fishing. For example, in the Sierra Leone, conflicting between artisanal and IUU vessels is common because fishing activity is concentrated in the inshore area where trawlers fish within 100 meters of the shoreline. So there is a social conflict between the artisanal and also the big company running with the IUU fishing. Secondly, it's about the IUU fishing also created a culture of non-compliance through the practices of corruption and bribery. Third, IUU fishing is also related to other organized crime, illicit activities like forced labor and slavery. Dr. Ahmad Santoso will explore more about the ocean-related crimes in the next panel. Next. This is the driver of the IUU fishing activities. First is a destructive incentive. Ambassador Peter Thompson also mentioning about the harmful subsidies and incentive from states to fish further, because as we know in the ocean-going fishing activities, they need the support like the fuel oil and other logistic support. They require support from the government. 54% fishing vessel operating in the high seas benefits from fisheries subsidies. Secondly, fisheries governance enabling IUU fishing. There is no governance existence in high seas. Vessel operating in high seas avoid being members of multilateral instrument. We all know that the regional fisheries management organization collecting all the members states who operates the fishing vessel in the high seas. But this is not unbinding as unbinding regulation. So really depends on the flag states of the fishing vessels. There's a lack of flag state control, geographical and structural gap in high seas governance, harmful fisheries subsidies. The other thing is about the regional fisheries management organization weaknesses. There is a regulatory gap and fragmentation of legal regime among RFMO. See other governance issue, different types of tools and mechanism platform leading to disintegration of IUU fishing monitoring system globally. So many states, so many coastal states across the world, but they don't have any similar or synchronized regulation for tackling the IUU fishing activities. This comes to the what we call complexity of how to solve the problem in IUU fishing. D is a gap between fisheries management and prevention of human rights abuse. There are some initiatives done by the United Nations, especially the International Labour Organization, under the Convention C 188, regarding the IUU fishing. But then again, not many countries also has already ratified this regulation. Challenge in enforcement. There are lack of political will and capacity for regulatory enforcement, lack of penalty and deterrence, weak coordination. Enforcement in high seas is vary depending on entirely the willingness of the member of states. This kind of the key drivers of IUU fishing activities can stay for a long time of the period of operation. Next. Oh, sorry. Next. Yeah. Next. Yeah. This is the modus operandi in IUU fishing. First is a transshipment. Yeah. This is a transshipment. Usually the fishing vessel operated in the high seas, they cannot bring the fish produced by the operations back to the home countries. So there is a certain cargo vessels, yeah, operated at the sea to transfer the fish production from the fishing vessel to the what do you call it, the flag states, yeah, of the fishing vessel. This is not monitored and controlled by any regulatory, any authorization in the member of the countries. Next, a flag of convenience. Some of the fishing vessels registered in the different country with the owner of the fishing vessels. Registration of vessels to a flag state different from the nationality of the vessel's owner. Also, the flag of non-compliance. The issuing states, yeah, for the flag, yeah, actually they don't responsible. They are not responsible for what is the activities of the fishing vessels under their registration. This is the advantage for illegal fishing. Registration is quick and easy. Taxes are low or non-existent. The identity of the owner is often hidden. Vessel can reflect and change name several times, yeah, without any punishment. Next. Port of convenience. Some of the port also where catch can be landed with a minimum or no inspection due to the lack of resources and capacity to ensure strict inspection or corruption among inspectors or poor data of catch landing. So there's a gap between the flag states and port states because the owners comes from other countries. The flags comes from other countries, and when the production of the fish landed in different countries. This kind of thing that the complexity of IUU fishing sometimes is very difficult to detect. And then the activation of the manipulation of VMS or ice. So we cannot track the fishing vessel operation in the high seas. Sometimes also the document and vessel's identity is fraud. Fishing without obtaining true license, canceling true identity, avoid complying with regulation and others. Next. So this is kind of the example. Indonesia has experienced in 2015, we have FV Viking. Yeah, FV Viking. This consolidated networks of fishing vessel ownership. For example, the flag Honduras, they give the flags 8. Yeah, Panama, the first company listed as an owner of the Viking. Chile is a captain of nationality. Uruguay, this the flag number 3 registered in Uruguay. Flag number 2 and number 6 registered in Togo. Flag number 4 registered in Equatorial Guinea. This kind of complexity, only a single fishing vessel operated illegally. They have so many flags. And also the owner is listed in Panama, and then also the owner is listed as in Hong Kong, Vietnam as a company, as a buyer. So sometimes the tracking activities is very difficult to detect who is the owner of the fishing vessel operation. Next. So after having a discussion with all the experts all over the world under the expert group Blue Paper 15, then we set some recommendation. First is we should promoting the selective incentive given to those who comply with the system with rewards and penalty mechanism set in place. So we are promoting globally, and also some regional, like regional fisheries management organization, they should have a kind of incentive to member of states concerning illegal fishing practices of their own states, fishing vessels. Number 2, improving the existing instrument and tools to combat IUU fishing. We understand the adoption of the Port State Measure Agreement, a legally binding international regulation which directly deals with the IUU fishing. So the Port State Mission should be ratified and implemented consistently among all the member countries. The activation of the flags of convenience registry. Step by step, we have to encourage the states not to issue the flag of convenience. The flag of convenience should be similar with the owner of the fishing vessels. Enforcement through the intensive surveillance and inspection, through the port control, at sea patrol, and monitoring, control, and surveillance using data satellite, for example, using VMS, using ICE, should be activated for all the fishing operation operated in the high seas. Regional information sharing, cooperation mechanism, and also improvement of transboundary case handling through international cooperation. Because we understand the complexity of the IUU fishing, so we should promote the international cooperation to tackle the problem of the IUU fishing. Next. So after setting up the recommendation, then we decided to put the high-level decisive opportunity for action. The first is, next, to adopt global transparency in fisheries. We are encouraging all the flag states to submit their data operation to the international platform of the information system. So the fishing vessel operated in the high seas or in the national authority waters also should submit the data operation to the global platform of system information system. So we are encouraging the global transparency in fisheries. More progressive action may include published information on beneficial ownership. So single fishing vessel should be transparent. Who is the owner? Who is the location? Who is the registration in the single line of operation information? The owner, the fishing vessels, the industry, the port state, flag state, it should be in the single bucket of information. Secondly, mandate and implement the near-term adoption of cost-effective digital tools. So instead of using all the petrol boats to monitor and control the illegal fishing, we can use promote the cost-effective digital tools using the satellite monitoring system, VMS, ICE. This is more cost-effective. Thirdly, improve transshipment activities information. So if the fishing vessel will operate the transshipment, they should register to the flag state and inform also to the port state what the partner fishing vessel who operate in the high seas. Next. Secondly, ratify and implementing the FAO Port State Measure Agreement. So Indonesia also has already ratified the PSMA. So we have to we have to make some national regulatory how to implement the PSMA under national jurisdiction. So every landing fish coming to the port of Indonesia should be registered and informed to the flag states, this vice versa as well. The Cape Town Agreement and ILO C188 as a complementary regulation to be implementing along also in the PSMA. So the human right abuse can be avoided in the fishing vessel operation. Thirdly, next, enhance regional cooperation. We are hoping that the regional fisheries management organization can be strengthened by the capacity to promote the binding regulatory framework to all the member of states, not only persuading, not only encouraging, but have promoting the incentive, punishment, reward and punishment for all member states concerning about the illegal fishing activities. Coordination and data transparency must be improved among our FMO, flag state regional mechanism, and the coastal and market states. Third, all our FMOs should adopt strong policy and monitoring. And finally, in terms of institutional arrangement, an authorized international body should oversee the performance of each RFMO, identify the gaps where fisheries management is non-existent, and push forward marine protected area in the high seas. Next. Digital scheme for documentation catch data should also be implemented. Regional information sharing and coordination bodies. Indonesia has the experience to promote the regional plan of action to combat IUU fishing. Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Australia, PNG, we are having the regional plan of action to data sharing, joint patrol operation, and also control and monitoring, control and surveillance of all the fishing operation in their own sea. Next, I think that's all. Thank you. Yeah, this is the kind of the IUU fishing and associated drivers, and I really hope that after the high-level panels issued the transformation document, we can promote this as a kind of the recommendation to the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Wijaya. And from your presentation, we learned that there are 3 drivers of IUU fishing, which are the destructive incentive, the fisheries governance that enables IUU fishing, and also the challenges in enforcement. And I think what we hope to explore in our discussion today is how those drivers can be addressed with concrete actions and strong collaborations. And now we will have Gunnar Stalsvik, the Policy Director on Transnational Organized Crime at the Norwegian Ministry of Trade and Fisheries. Pak Gunnar, I know that it is very, very early in the morning where you are right now. So thank you very much for joining us online. And Pak Gunnar, the time is yours. Pak Gunnar, I think you're still in mute.
Yes. Okay, so now I'm sharing my screen. Okay, I trust that that you now see my screen, and so maybe if you can confirm that.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Thank you very much.
What we're seeing, Gunnar, is the presentation mode.
Hello, Pak Gunnar, can you hear us? Yeah, we can see the presentation, but we cannot hear you right now. Hello? Yeah, we cannot hear you, Pak Gunnar. I think there might be something wrong with the microphone. Yeah, while we are dealing with these technical difficulties, is it okay if I turn the time over to Per Eric Berg? Okay, great. Hello, Mr. Berg. Are you here with us?
Yes, I am. I am here.
Okay. Okay, so we now have Per Eric Berg, the coordinator of Stop Illegal Fishing. Stop Illegal Fishing is an African-based organization dedicated to combat illegal fishing in cooperation with African governments and intergovernmental organizations. And we know that Mr. Berg is presently advises several African governments on the issue related to fisheries and also monitoring, control, and surveillance. And Mr. Berg, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar, Stephanie. It was really, really nice. I hope everybody are safe and well. It's quite surreal times, not least also for us fighting IUU fishing. I will now try to share my screen and see if I can manage to do that. Maybe I'm going to have technical as well. Why can't I see that? Yeah, I look like I have a problem here as well. Let me see. There we are. And then I go to this one. There we are.
Yep, we can see the presentation. Yes.
I managed. So good morning to everybody and good afternoon to other places in the world. I'm going to talk about mainly the Western Indian Ocean, which is the area of East Africa. And I will use the task force model from the Western Indian Ocean as an example to discuss the importance of regional cooperation to combat illegal fishing. My example is the Fish Eye Africa Task Force and what we have learned from it. I will then talk about some recent work that Stop Illegal Fishing has conducted on transshipment a report called Moving Tuna. This report focuses on transshipment in the Western Indian Ocean, but the findings relates to regional cooperation and international support. Fish Eye Africa is a cooperation between 8 coastal states in East Africa, which is soon to be integrated into the Southern African Development Community. This will make this cooperation larger and politically much stronger, and it builds on the already success of the task force to date. The region includes a large and valuable small-scale coastal fishery, a very valuable tuna fishery, and several smaller troll fishery. Cooperation and information sharing between MCS personnel to support enforcement actions is the key aspect of this cooperation. The task force was established to enhance the regional cooperation and to support enforcement actions when violations have been detected. More than 50 cases have been investigated, and a number of them can be found on our website. The Fish Eye Africa Task Force was new thinking when it was established in 2012. It led to the establishment later of the West African Task Force, as well as the newly created African Ports Network. I will quickly mention a few cases that illustrates the work of the Fish Eye Africa Task Force. Firstly, the Premier, which was a Korean purse-seine fishing vessel. It had fished illegally in Liberia and came to the Western Indian Ocean to continue fishing and to run from a fine given to it by the Liberian government. The Fish Eye countries united to deny port access and denied fishing licenses. As a result of this regional action, the vessel owner paid the fine to Liberia, and this vessel is now again fishing in the ocean, but hopefully this time legally. I would also like to mention the fishing vessel named Greco 1 and Greco 2. These were Belize-registered trawlers that had been illegally fishing in Somalia, which was detected through cooperation with the EU NAVFOR. This resulted in an arrest and a fine, but that was not the end of the case. By digging deeper into this case through regional cooperation sharing and information sharing, we also identified that these vessels were probably scrapped Greek vessels, where the owner had received payment for scrapping of the vessel in a corruption scam. These are both good examples where the joining national, regional, international work supported the regional task force in fighting IUU fishing. Fish Eye Africa investigations have resulted in many enforcement actions and sanctions. We have also reflected on the investigation to draw more experience and findings. Although as MCS personnel, we are primarily looking for cases of illegal fishing, what we found usually went beyond illegal fishing. In almost every case that we investigated, we also found related or enabling illegalities or crimes. For example, document forgeries, vessel identity forgeries, or corruption. All of these illegalities or crimes enable the fishing vessel to gain access to flag, fishing licenses, or port entries. A few cases we saw what we called associated crimes, crimes where the fishing operation is secondary, such as drugs, wildlife smuggling, and human trafficking. This showed us why interagency cooperation is so important. As fisheries enforcement officers, we usually focus on the detection of illegal fishing. But as we have seen, these illegalities are closely linked to other illegalities or crimes. Lessons learned from the Fish Eye Africa Task Force show us that the regional cooperation is dependent on national interagency cooperation and global information sharing. If this is present, we can create a regional systematic checking and information sharing mechanism that will detect and prevent many illegal actors from operating. Systematic organized crime, which this often is, must be met with a systematic checking and verification of documents, vessel identity, and other aspects of fishing vessels and their operators. For the Fish Eye Africa Task Force, this will now be anchored, as I said, in the new Southern African Development Community MCS Coordination Center. And this is an exciting development, as it will give stronger political support and help to tackle many other challenges. I would then like to move to a brief introduction to the recent report that Stop Illegal Fishing has produced, which is called Moving Tuna. This report looks at the role transshipment plays in the tuna fishery in the Western Indian Ocean. The study looks at how tuna was transshipped from around 50 industrial purseeiners and around 500 industrial longliners. And it includes at sea and in-port transshipment. The report is available on the Stop Illegal Fishing website, and you can see the link at the bottom of this slide. The findings show us that 13% of the tuna is transshipped at sea. This is about 50% of the longline tuna catch. Around 26 carriers or reefer vessels are active in this type of transshipment. The fishing vessels are all Asian, and the tuna is almost all destined for processing and consumption in Asia. Then 29% of the tuna is transshipped in port and is landed in the Western Indian Ocean region. This is mainly European purseiner caught tuna destined for canneries. However, although this fish is landed in the Western Indian Ocean, it is ultimately consumed in Europe. Finally, 58%, the biggest proportion of the transshipment in the Western Indian Ocean, is in the ports, only to be transshipped into carriers or containers for direct onward movement to Asia or Europe. This is very interesting for the region. So we looked at this and other findings in respect to SDG 14.4. Goal 14.4, which we have heard, is in brief to end overfishing and IUU fishing by 2020. Transshipment is an important operational bottleneck that helps MCS officers to monitor the catch. So these findings shows that by far the best monitored transshipments are those taking place at sea, not those in ports. This is because the Regional Fisheries Management Body, the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, runs an independent regional observer program that monitors all at-sea transshipments. For in-port transshipments, port states are expected to monitor only 5% of the transshipments. In practice, they focus this effort on transshipment for landings or from their own flagged vessels. This leaves the largest proportion of the transshipment, those made for transit imports, mainly from European purseeiners, essentially unmonitored. And this really underlines the importance of implementation of the Port State Measures Agreement. In respect to regional cooperation, two of the findings of the Moving Tuna report are interesting. Firstly, that the regional transshipment monitoring is essential. All transshipments in the region should be subject to similar independent monitoring based on risk assessment, non-partially, and implemented by the user pay principle. Secondly, that regional validation of information as required. As I said, transshipment is an operational bottleneck for gathering and compiling information. But the real benefits come from polling this with other fisheries information and validating it regionally across all MCS tools. So I found this report very relevant for regional cooperation. All the gaps in transshipment monitoring that create opportunities for IUU fishing to go undetected would be best met through strengthening regional cooperation in these ways. May I end by making a few take-home points from what we have learned in the last few years in the Western Indian Ocean. For regional cooperation to succeed in stopping IUU fishing, we considered that it needs to build on national interagency cooperation. This is particularly between fisheries, maritime, and port authorities. And this is because of the evidence found in the fish eye investigations that the illegalities are linked to activities before and after fishing just as much as during fishing. If we are able to stop related illegalities and crimes, then we will also stop IUU fishing. Secondly, regional cooperation must focus on fisheries and IUU challenges that impact directly on the region. There must be real benefit, such as food or jobs or money, from the countries stopping IUU fishing. Their action must provide tangible benefits. And finally, regional cooperation needs to be supported by meaningful and fair international cooperation. This must ensure that the burden for MCS doesn't fall disproportionately on the coastal or port state. For example, in moving tuna, we see that the region gains very little from the yellowfin in the Western Indian Ocean. But those benefiting the European and Asian industry and consumers are not paying for the MCS activities required to sustainably manage the fishery. So with this key message, regional cooperation needs national interagency cooperation and international support to succeed. I thank you for listening to my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berg. And we really appreciate your taking the time to join the webinar despite the time difference. And we learned about the importance of regional cooperation, and we take the African region as an example. But Mr. Berg, I do have one question. How crucial it is to build inter-regional cooperation, probably a cooperation arrangement between the African region and Asia region. I mean, do you think that regional cooperation is something that we should prioritize right now, or considering the pressing deadline of SDG 14.4, do you think inter-regional cooperation is something that we should start pursuing?
Yes, I think it's vital. One of the biggest challenges the coastal states and port states are struggling with is communication, for example, with flag states. And this may be for different reasons. It could be even because of language barriers. But this whole communication with flag states and information and verification of vessels operating in distant waters is so important to detect illegalities. And today this communication is very complicated. An example is communication with China. It's almost impossible. And this is one of the big challenges we are facing, and it's very much needed in the step forward.
Thank you very much for the answer, Per Eric. And I'd like to go back to Mr. Stalsvik. Hello, Pak Gunnar.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Excellent.
And, do you want to start the screen sharing and see if it works now?
Yes, absolutely. So just a moment. And I trust that you also hear me as well as see the screen.
Yes, everything's fine now.
Excellent, very good.
The time is right.
Thank you very much. It's very early here in Norway. It's still dark outside. And but I was saying earlier that I'm very happy to be invited for this this workshop. And as you know, I've been to Jakarta and many other places in Indonesia many times. So I feel that I am in Indonesia right now, which is nice. So I'm going to focus on the theme for this event, which obviously is how to combat IUU fishing, and I want to give an overview of the recent developments in Norway and how we deal with that, and maybe that is something that could be interesting for an Indonesian audience to take note of. So just to start with the obvious starting point, which is the Port State Measures Agreement. Norway has ratified the Psma Agreement. What we have focused on now is the implementation of this agreement in Norwegian legislation and also in Norwegian practice. And of course, we support and encourage all states to become party of the agreement and of course also to implement the agreement. We were part of and also part of a driving force behind the negotiation of the agreement. So this is definitely something that we support. But I want to also focus on another development that and in our view an important issue that was raised in the FAO, and which resulted in the voluntary guidelines for flag state performance. And we heard the previous speakers talking a lot about the flags of convenience and the flag state's responsibilities. This has been through a process in the FAO, all the responsibilities of flag states, all the responsibilities in international law that flag states have, has been collected in what is called the Voluntary Guidelines for Flag State Performance. And this is basically guidelines which can be used for evaluating the performance of your country as a flag state. And this guidelines was also Norway was very active in developing these guidelines and to negotiate them. And this is basically the core of IUU fishing. What responsibility does flag states have according to international law? So the core of IUU fishing is flag state compliance. So it's basically the flag state which is the primary subject, the responsible subject when we come to the issue of IUU fishing. Now I'm talking from a legal perspective. So what are the responsibilities, the legal responsibilities that you as a flag state have to combat IUU fishing? And those responsibilities are collected in these voluntary guidelines. And what these guidelines encourage is flag states to do a voluntary self-assessment of its flag state performance. So why is this important? Well, of course it's important to be a responsible flag state, but this is also an issue that has been raised in the ITLOS case, the advisory opinion on IUU fishing taking place within the economic zone of another state. And this advisory opinion of ITLOS was about to what extent the flag state shall be held liable for IUU fishing conducted by vessels sailing under its flag. So it's liable according to international law. So one of the interesting part of the ITLOS conclusion is that the flag state is under the due diligence obligation to take necessary measures to ensure compliance by vessels flying its flag with the laws and regulations of coastal states relating to conservation management of fisheries resources. So due diligence is basically that the flag state has to make sure that they've done everything to avoid IUU fishing in another state's EEZ. So coming back to Norway and what we have done this self-assessment of us as a flag state. That was a quite long process. We gathered experts from the government. Myself, I was part of this assessment, but also we had people from academia, from universities in Norway to take part of this, and we have issued this report that we have shared with the RFMOs that Norway is part of, and also FAO member states. So the two main findings, there were several small findings that has to follow up, but the two main findings is that what we see is that there is a lack of clarity and also deficiencies in regulations concerning vessels engaged in transshipment. So that is an issue that we are working on, and to look into how to mend that in the Norwegian legislation. And also that there are no fishery-specific regulations concerning vessels involved in other fishing-related activities, such as refueling and resupplying at sea. And this is also vessels that are covered by the Psma Agreement. So this is obviously also something that we are looking into on how to mend that in our legislation. So that is an example of how a flag state can ensure that it is compliant. So that is, of course, something that we will encourage all flag states to do. It is also, before I move to this new slide, just to add that, of course, we understand that not all flag states have the resources or even the will to make a self-assessment. But also keep in mind that these guidelines are also a sort of a catalog for you to use, basically to identify whether a flag state is in compliance or not. So it's a very good document to use in when working on IUU fishing issues. So we heard Peter Thompson talking about SDG goal 14, and I would like to discuss this based on the SDG goals. And in the SDG goal 14, we have target 14.4, which is, the target is by 2020, this year, to effectively regulate harvesting and end overfishing and IUU fishing. So of course, we know that this is difficult to manage in 1 month's time. But of course, this is an ongoing goal to end IUU fishing. So how do we do that? And keep in mind that the core of IUU fishing is flag states' compliance to its international obligations. So how do we do that? Well, the obvious thing is that we have to remind flag states to fulfill its obligations. But of course, we know that that doesn't help. That's what we have tried for many years. We also have the Psma Agreement. That is important to implement and to have more countries to support the agreement. We have the blacklisting system for blacklisting vessel flagged to a non-compliant flag state in RFMOs. That would be relevant to unregulated fishing, and also other trade-relating measures such as the EU IUU regulation. So these are a type of measures that hopefully will make a flag state more compliant. And then, since the issue of crime in the fishing industry has been an issue that has been brought up in the background paper for this seminar, there was also reference to the two reports of the Ocean Panel, one on IUU fishing and the other one on transnational organized crime in fisheries. So what are the relationship between SDG 14 and SDG 16? And I think maybe for some of you are surprised that I'm talking about SDG 16, but if you actually look at SDG 16.4, it says that by 2030, so we actually have a bit more time to fulfill this SDG. One of the targets is to significantly reduce all forms of organized crime. So just think about that, all forms of organized crime. It's not only drugs or gun trafficking or you know, the type of organized crime that's associated with that, but it's all forms of organized crime. And that means that it also covers organized crime in the global fishing industry. So, and it is already an established fact that there is organized crime in global fisheries. Corruption, human trafficking, illegal fishing. Yes, illegal fishing is also transnational organized crime. If I use my own country as an example, illegal fishing is a crime in Norway. So it's part of the penal code of Norway. It's a criminal offense. You have economic crime and a number of other types of crimes through the whole value chain, from somebody is planning until somebody is eating the fish, planning to do illegal fishing until, and there's a whole range of different crimes being committed along that value chain. And then we can ask ourselves, how can we achieve SDG 14.4, which is to end IUU fishing, without addressing SDG 16.4, which is to significantly reduce all forms of organized crime? We believe that to combat transnational organized crime in the global fishing industry will help us to achieve the SDG 14 goal of ending IUU fishing. It will help us to achieve that goal. So to only focus on the organized crime issue will not necessarily end IUU fishing. It is a complementary approach. So our approach is that the measures against IUU fishing and fisheries crime are not the same, but are complementary to each other. And this is also the reason or the background why the Ocean Panel separated these two issues in two reports. So if we focus on the crime issue, so how do we fulfill SDG goal 16, target 16.4? Basically to combat organized crime in all its forms, and in this case, in the fishing industry. Well, in general, we have to deal with it the same way as we do with any other type of crime. We shouldn't treat it differently than other types of crimes, which means that we have to deal with it through the criminal justice system, with crime prevention strategies, with the use of criminal investigation and interagency cooperation. Which basically means that that different law enforcement agencies has to work towards having a successful criminal case. And that is the goal of this interagency cooperation, or that you have interagency cooperation to create a crime prevention strategy locally, or nationally, or even regionally. You also do this with the use of police cooperation bilaterally, or through mechanisms such as Interpol, Europol, and others, which is the recognized police channels of sharing of information in criminal cases, when you have a case which actually is where there is suspicion of a crime. And I think that is important, because when you move into this system, it's suspicion of crime. Also, to encourage the use of the UN Convention on Transnational Organized Crime as basis for state-to-state cooperation. Now, the UNTOC Convention is basically the world's biggest cooperation agreement. It is a framework on how to connect different legal systems of the different countries together, so you can transfer evidence to another jurisdiction that can be used in the court of law in that other jurisdiction. And finally, we also have to have due regard to the human rights for all parties involved. And that is a criteria basically for when you are dealing with criminal offenses. And so we have to deal with this as it is, as you would deal with any other type of crime. So moving to the more political side of this, fisheries crime, or transnational organized crime in the global fishing industry, is an issue that it's not new. But what is new is that the world is now more and more recognizing that this exists. And to be able to solve a problem, you have to recognize the existence of a problem. So I've highlighted 2 paragraphs of the International Declaration on Transnational Organized Crime in the Global Fishing Industry that was adopted in 2018. To date, 28 countries are supporting this declaration, and recognize the existence of transnational organized crime in the global fishing industry. And it also recognized that this transnational activity includes crimes committed through the whole fisheries supply and value chain, which includes illegal fishing, corruption, tax and customs fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, document fraud, and human trafficking. And finally, I would like to do some advertisement from the Norwegian government side to support the Copenhagen Declaration, or the Declaration on Transnational Organized Crime in the Global Fishing Industry. We have established the Blue Justice initiative, which addresses the questions or the problems identified in the declaration. And on the 10th of December, which is just around the corner, there's going to be a high-level Blue Justice conference, a digital conference, and all of you can attend. It's just to go to bluejustice.org/conference 2020, and this is examples of high-level participation. We have from Scotland, from Mexico, from South Africa. The Norwegian Prime Minister will be there, Fiji, Marshall Islands, and a number of other countries. In total, at the moment, we have about 20 high-level participation. So I hope to see you there, and that you register for this event. I think it will be interesting, and with this I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Pak Gunnar. And we see some concrete actions to effectively combat IUU fishing in your presentation. You emphasize about the important roles of the flag state, port state, market state, and also regional fisheries management organization. And I think it is also very important to note that combating IUU fishing and combating transnational organized crime in fisheries may require different treatment, but are complementary to one another. And we do have one question for you, Pak Gunnar. The extent of IUU fishing in the world today indicates that flag states are not fulfilling their responsibility adequately. And indeed, lack of effective flag state control has been acknowledged as the primary cause of IUU fishing. And you mentioned that it is a very challenging thing to do to encourage the flag state to perform their responsibilities. But how do you see Norway's important role to encourage other countries to perform flag state responsibilities as the initiator of the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy?
Well, I think it's my first reaction is that this is not an easy question, and I think it's I think it's kind of cruel to ask me such a difficult question this early in the morning. To be honest, I really don't know exactly how to deal with that, but I believe that at least, you know, to go forward with a good example is important, and we hope that there's few countries that actually have had the self-assessment of its flag state performance. So that doesn't mean that we are doing everything right, but at least we are trying to make things better. And I believe that a self-assessment is also a useful tool for in capacity building activities. So we will encourage in capacity building to use this tool, and in order to identify the what should I say, the challenges but of course we all know that you know, it's everybody have specific flag states in mind that would particularly have should use this self-assessment, and you know, the challenge is that when you come to international law, it's a fine line between what is politics and what is the law, and that is the main difference between when you are working within a national legal system, where you have legislation and so on. You actually also have institutions. You have a court system. You have police. You have other enforcement agencies and so on, which follows the national legislation. And it's you sort of have a non-political system to follow up the obligations as our obligations as citizens of Indonesia or citizens as Norway. You have the possibility. But when we're talking about international obligations that states have, that flag states have, it's you don't have that type of strong institutions that sort of can force states to uphold its obligations. And then to be honest, I think that the measures that have already been identified, such as the Psma Agreement, that you don't allow vessels from that's being engaged in IUU fishing, entry, blacklisting of vessels, trade restrictions for fish stemming from flag states that are non-compliant and so on, is I think that is as far as possible to go within an IUU context. So I think, you know, I think that is basically how to deal with it. But at the same time, it's one of the challenges with that type of approach is that, you know, if it tips over to become a more political game, then it's also much more difficult then it very often gets more difficult, basically. So if you look at the approach from a fisheries crime approach, we are basically working within the framework of each country and the legislation that is in each country, and each country's need for evidence and cooperation with other countries, not in order to expose flag states or non-compliance of flags, but basically to investigate individuals that are not following the national legislation of countries. And I think that is the main difference also between those two approaches. It doesn't mean that you know, either one, but it's complementary, because one approach is to deal with it through the flag state and responsibility, and the other approach is basically to approach the criminality, which is recognized as criminality in the national legislation of different countries around the world. So that's I think is I don't know if I answered the question, but that's the best I can do now. It's 4:50 in the morning here in Norway, and I think that I will soon log off and go to bed again, if it's okay with you.
Yes, Pak Gunnar, thank you very much. And we really appreciate your taking the time to join us early in the morning. And now we will move on to the next speaker, Pak Mas Ahmad Santosa, the CEO of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative. Mr. Santosa is the former coordinator of the Special Advisors to the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries at the Indonesian Presidential Task Force to Combat Illegal Fishing, or Satgas 115. Pak Ota, the time is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Stephanie. Your Excellency Peter Thompson, United States Secretary General Special Envoy for Oceans, Your Excellency Ambassador Rudyard, Director General Multilateral Cooperation of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Professor Dr. Sharif Wijaya. This is my longtime friend, Head of Research and Human Resources of Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. And this is also my longtime friend, Gunnar Stolvik, Head Director of Policy Affairs in Ministry of Trade and Fisheries of Norway, and Peter Erik Berg, Coordinator of Stop Illegal Fishing, and all participants. First of all, I would like to thank Ambassador Rudyard and Pak Sharif Wijaya for the initiative of this event. And I think this event very important. This is a kick-off meeting. Hopefully it will be further developed by more concrete international coalition of actions, hopefully. First of all, I would like to share with you IUU fishing hamper measures in building sustainable ocean economy. I think I would like to reiterate what already mentioned by Ambassador Rudyard and by Pak Sharif as well, and by Peter Thompson. The total value of key ocean assets from marine fisheries, mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass is estimated to be at least $6.9 trillion US. This is according to WWF study in 2015. And as mentioned by Ambassador Rudyard as well, IUU fishing accounts for an estimated 20% of the world's catch, and as much as 50% in some areas, based on ACNU et al. 2009 study. And subsidies can lead to greater fishing capacity, create economic incentive for overfishing, make fishing enterprises more profitable despite declining fishery resources, and promote other destructive fishing practices such as IUU fishing, as found by Oceana study in 2017. FAO considers IUU fishing to be a major global threat to sustainable management of fisheries and to stable socio-economic condition for many small-scale fishing communities. IUU fishing activity has escalated over the last 2 decades, and it's estimated to take 11 to 26 million metric tons of fish per annum with a value of 10 to 23 billion US dollars. This is according to World Ocean Assessment 2016. Transshipment allows, this is already mentioned by my friend Eric Berg. Transshipment allows a fishing vessel to sell fish, both legally and illegally caught. The vessel which carries the transshipped fish to the port and assists in laundering the illegally caught fish. And IUU fishing destroys also the marine ecosystem and biodiversity by using super trawling boats and bottom trawling vessel as well. So let me discuss a bit about positive impacts of combating IUU fishing based on Indonesia's experience. And I would like to share with you the study conducted by the agency led by Professor Syarif Wijaya, Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. I would like to point out 2 things actually. The first one is the IUU policies work. This is the research of BRSDM under Professor Syarif Wijaya together with the University of California, Santa Barbara, conducted in 2016. So the first one is under Minister Susi directions, Indonesia's IUU policy to eliminate foreign IUU fishing and invest in small-scale fleet reduces fishing effort by a net 35% and will lead to a long-term increase in catch as long as domestic fishing effort is well managed. That's the finding of the study. And the second finding is in the context of global. By 2050, the global reform measures would simultaneously generate increases in fish biomass up to 690 million metric tons, catch as well up to 16 million metric tons, and fisheries profits up to 53 billion US dollar. Consistent fisheries reform policy will increase fish biomass by 224%, increase the catches by 100%, and economic benefit up to 3.7 billion US dollars. That's the correlation between rigorous action to combat IUU fishing and the benefit that we'll gain from the effort to restore and to make it a healthier ocean. So this is again the data from the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. Indicator of this is the data from KKP, Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Indicator of restored health of marine resources after Indonesia's fisheries policy reform. The number of fish resource potentials, maximum sustainable yield in Indonesia in million ton per year, and from 1997 until 2017. An increase in Indonesia's fish stock is an outcome of rigorous actions against IUU fishing. including a ban on foreign fishing vessels to catch fish within Indonesian EEZ and territorial waters since October 2014. So the latest data, official data, 2017, 12.54 million ton, and there's an official data of maximum sustainable yield in 2018, 13.1 million tons fish. Another examples of the combating IUU fishing, which affects the sustainability, is decline of foreign fishing vessels operating in Indonesia in 2015 to 2019, compared to 2012 and 2014. This data is provided by Global Fishing Watch. These two pictures are a comparison of the number of foreign fishing vessels operating in Indonesia before and after 2014. The decline in the number of foreign fishing vessels, bottom left, is the impact of moratorium on fishings by foreign fishing vessels built overseas. We call it ex-foreign fishing vessels. And the ban of foreign vessels operation in Indonesia, as well as tough enforcement measures led by Minister Susi Pujiastuti and his team, including Professor Dr. Syarif Wijaya. Arafura Sea, fishing ground 718, which was one dominated by foreign and ex-foreign vessels, is now filled with Indonesian fishing vessels. The number of Indonesian fishing vessels operating in the Arafura Sea, fishing ground 718, is 1,538 vessels. This is more than 30 gross tonnage. Arafura Sea is the fishing grounds with the highest occupancy of Indonesian fishing vessels compared to 10 other fishing grounds. Illegal foreign fishing vessels tend to avoid operating in high occupancy areas of Indonesian fisheries. And the other samples, this data is provided by National Statistic Agency as well. The fisherman prosperity increases. The fisherman business exchange value has the most significant increase compared to other indicators. Fisherman purchasing power and performance of fisherman business (NTUN) keeps increasing constantly since 2016. And other example is non-tax state revenue from fisheries reached the highest record in history as the regulation and law enforcement improve. So state revenues increase. So 551.12 billion rupees. This is the highest achievement in the last 10 years. And after foreign vessel and ex-foreign vessel are banned. And next, please. That's non-tax state revenue. This is tax state revenue from fisheries. From 2014 until 2019. So you could look at the figure, the data provided by Director General of Tax under Ministry of Finance. So almost hit 2 trillion rupiahs. Hopefully by this year will be more than 2 trillion rupiahs. And let me come up with the suggestions. Why do we need to build regional and global cooperation? We have one world with interconnected oceans, which means that IUU fishing affects resources beyond borders, thus endangering the ocean as a whole. Therefore, international cooperation is indeed greatly necessary. Combating IUU fishing should not be a one-man show, instead of collaborative global actions. And global partnership is important to combat IUU fishing and secure the sustainability of fisheries resources. Strong action requires strong political will from the highest government officials. Interagency cooperation is needed in national level as well as in regional and international level to take strong actions against IUU fishing. International bilateral cooperation should be enhanced by data and information exchange. By strengthening bilateral cooperation, joint enforcement task force could give positive signal to deter the perpetrators. Raising awareness to the enforcement officers of the transnational, the existence of transnational crime, as Pak Gunnar Stolvik already mentioned, and also the need to what we call it, to comprehend the multi-legal regime skills in tackling and in handling and enforcing IUU fishing cases. Collaboration across jurisdictions between small and large-scale fisheries types, between port, coastal, flag and market states, and across businesses, NGOs, government, enforcement, and technology is critical to the success of the fights against IUU fishing globally. There should be greater collaboration between governments, NGO, and the private sector. So this event is manifestation of the importance of having collaboration between governments, among governments, between governments and government and non-governmental institutions. To make more progress in combating IUU fishing, we need a more joined-up approach among governments, civil society, science, industry, and the private sector for a system that is coherent and consistent in its action to combat IUU fishing. So we refer to the paper as mentioned by Pak Syarif Wijaya on IUU fishing and associated driver, published in 2020. So there is an example of collaboration among organizations and institutions. G2G collaboration in combating IUU fishing. This is small projects, but I think it's good to be considered, to be capitalized, to be upscaled. Regional Investigative and Analytical Case Meeting, or RIACM, when MMAF and Satgas 115, Task Force 115, handling NICA and STS-50 vessels. So in 2019, RIACMs were held in Jakarta and Busan, respectively, to discuss the case of NICA and STS-50. Participants of this meeting include Australia, represented by AFMA, Indonesia, Task Force 115, and MMAF, Office of Public Prosecutors, Republic of Korea, USA, US NOAA, Embassy of Panama, Interpol, Global Fisheries Enforcement Team at that time. The goal of this meeting is to share information gathered by each country and have a discussion among related countries so that those information can be used by each country as a benchmark to take next enforcement measures. Discussion among countries hold a key role to ensure that all the global criminal network can be detected, thus enabling the effective legal process to be carried out by each country. And another example is partnership between NGO and government of Indonesia, international NGO including. This is Environmental Justice Foundation and C4Eds as well, with IOG and with the Indonesian government, which is the protection of Indonesian Migrant Workers Agency, which is responsible directly to the president. Due diligence towards Indonesian and receiving countries, manning agencies that recruit and place Indonesian fishers on foreign fishing vessels operated abroad prevent human trafficking practices. Evaluation of national laws and regulation of receiving countries regarding the protection towards migrant workers, particularly Indonesian fishers. Developing a mechanism on the verification of problematic business partners and prospective employers, recruiters, including operators involved in human trafficking practices. So we conduct gap analysis of as well on the ILO Convention on Work in Fishing, C188, and IOG collaboration with C4S as well, information exchange on the evaluation of manning agency in receiving countries. So we identified potential partners for global coalition of action to end IUU fishing. This is can be longer, the list actually. The first of all, we need to utilize the existence of ASEAN network to combat IUU fishing, established December 2019 in Bangkok, Thailand. So we need to utilize as well the existence of South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization, or SPRFMO, and we need to utilize as well West Africa Task Force to tackle illegal fishing, established in 2015, as mentioned by Mr. Berg, and Global Fishing Watch, Trickmat Tracking, and Fish Eye Africa. So we need to collaborate with them. And we need to collaborate with Blue Justice Initiative or Norway government, as presented and as mentioned by Pak Gunnar Stovik. And we need to work as well with the UN Secretary General Special Envoy for the Oceans. We need to work together with Interpol Project Scale. That's what Indonesia experienced as well. And we need to work together with RPOA, IUU. So it consists of 11 countries. Of course, the government of Indonesia, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries are more than welcome to be part of the main supporter or main actor to promote global coalition of action to end IUU fishing. So last slide, my last slide is possible areas of cooperation. Financing, develop innovative and diversified valuation and financing mechanism that help to widen the scale of the fights against IUU fishing around the globe. Improving policy, work with governments to develop integrated measures that consider the transnational nature of IUU fishing. This is related to what Pak Gunnar already indicated. The third one is capacity building. Activities such as trainings, workshops, seminars to build awareness among governments, policymakers, NGOs, industries, and other stakeholders of the multiple benefits and cost effectiveness of combating IUU fishing for the continuity of sustainable blue economy and human well-being. And proof of concept. Develop best practice of combating IUU fishing into effective national and local measures, and ensure that national legislations are consistent with relevant international legal instruments, as well as conservation and management measures. And number 5, evaluating the performance of RFMOs in carrying out the task of fisheries management, and MCS, monitoring, control, and surveillance of high seas fishing vessels. And knowledge sharing as well. Develop the knowledge and best tools required to end IUU fishing. Intelligent information exchange between countries and international organizations, and disclosure of vessel tracking information, PMS and AIS, and joint investigation and joint patrol. And last point is expert assistance for inspection, evidence handling, digital forensic, and investigation, like we did under MISD and WIACAM. That's my suggestion and my thoughts. Thank you very much. Still unmute? Still mute? Steffi? Still mute?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And I think it is very interesting to see that there are available tools and possible partnerships that we can build to form a strong coalition of action. And now we will move on to the question and answer portion of the forum. And the first question is addressed to Professor Wijaya. So, sir, the question is, due to the lack of regulatory gaps and fragmentation of legal regimes among RFMOs, Is there any possibility to delegate the authority of making a standard or regulation and executing the monitoring, controlling, and surveillance mechanism to a state-owned enterprise?
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Well, Regional Fisheries Management Organization is a business alliance. Business alliance among all the fishing operation company, yeah, all over the world. Usually they have the ocean-going fishing fleet, yeah, and also the coastal state. In every RFMO meeting, usually the business alliance coming together with the government, the official from the governments. They are mentioning, they start with the identification of the stock, the fish stock in this area, and then how to define the quota, something like a quota for the member of the member states and the company involving in the ocean-going fishing fleet. So if we want to enforce the regulatory for the combating IUU fishing, actually we have to combine between the business enterprise, business entities, and the government bodies. For example, we have RPOR, yeah, Regional Plan of Action among of the coastal states, for example, in Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Australia, PNG, we have a regional plan of action for the combating IUU fishing. This is kind of the enforcement to tackle the risk of the IUU fishing. But then we have to communicate with the business alliance.
Suaranya
So
nggak masuk nih,
the
karena tadi
business alliance
tiba-tiba ini
should
saya
understand
tahu
that
tiba-tiba
if they
hang.
do something wrong in the ocean going on the high seas, then the flag state should responsible for what they are doing. This kind of the coordination
Bisa kasih
sometimes
message nggak sama operatornya biar
not
jeda
happen,
sebentar.
yeah, between the business alliance and the government. So I really want, like Mr. Ahmad Santoso mentioned, that should be in the future should be action coalition supported by the HRP, high-level panel member of state, and then we promote something like regional cooperation, like in Southeast Asia, Pacific, Australia, Oceania, Pacific. We can promote the regional plan of action for combating IUU fishing and involving RFMO become as a member of coalition. So instead of binding regulatory framework, then we can ask the like something like a consensus or understanding among the business entities, the government, between flag state and the coastal state. This kind of thing that we can start with the promoting the governance in high seas. If many regional area doing the same thing, then by the time we can propose to the United Nations to endorse that this kind of the best practices can be adopted, like international bodies like Interpol, yeah, the police among all the countries, yeah, a member of the UN, they set up international bodies like Interpol. So in the future, hopefully, there is international bodies under the United Nations concerning about how to regulate the fishing vessel operation in the high seas, something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Wijaya. And the next question is for Mr. Per Eric Berg. Mr. Berg, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, great. So the question is, how do you set up a regional cooperation when the capacity and capability of each state differs? I mean, how do we need to deal with the gaps of capabilities of the states involved in the regional framework?
There will always be champions, and there will always be other countries that...
We cannot hear you right now.
Okay, can you hear me?
We're checking if the problem is with our system or with your connection.
I can hear you very well.
Hello, can you hear us right now?
Yeah, I can hear you extremely well. You cannot hear me? Yeah. Can anybody hear me?
Hello, Per-Erik, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Now we can hear you now. Do you want me to, hello?
Hello, yeah.
Great, yeah. Do you want me to read the question again?
No, that's not necessary. There will always be different capacity and different ability and different both institutional and human capacity available for regional cooperation. And it will actually also change. It can change with the change of political leadership. It can change for a number of reasons. But in a regional cooperation, you will always have champions, and it's important to let champions be part of the leadership of the regional cooperation. And we have seen in Fisheries Africa is that is not a constant. It's not the same countries that represent the champions over time. Each country has a number of very good people, and utilizing the good people is very important. And spending time on awareness and convincing that regional cooperation is the best way forward is part of the communication process when you're dealing with regional cooperation. As I said, the dynamics change, but that doesn't mean one shouldn't set up mechanisms for regional cooperation. And capacity may be weaker in one country compared to another country, but that is where maybe support functions and the wish to assist and interact can improve the situation as well. We have seen in many countries that the peer pressure and the wish to actually do the right thing can be reducing corruption. It can reduce fulfillment. It has many very positive effects that you wouldn't achieve unless you had a regional network and cooperation.
Yeah, thank you very much for the answer, Per-Erik. So I think we are running out of time right now, but we still have time for one more question for Pak Ota. And Pak Ota, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So the question is, so I'm gonna read the whole question. I heard about sustainable fishing is the solution to stop and prevent IUU fishing from occurring. But the truth is IUU happen not just because of human greed, but is also pushed by economic factors. The market demands for a huge amount of ocean faunas, ocean resources, make some group of people so to sell as many as they could to gain more profits. In your opinion, in the regard, how relevant is sustainable fishing to prevent or at least minimize IUU fishing? And just to add something, Pak Ota, I think the main idea is how do you see the relations between IUU fishing and sustainable ocean economic, and how to really get to that balance of preserving the ocean resources and also to get a sustainable economic assets from the ocean?
I think, thank you, Stephanie. I think it's clear the relationship between rigorous action to combat IUU fishing and sustainable ocean economy when I presented the data provided by government as well as by National Statistic Agency. So increasing of the maximum sustainable yield, fish stock, increasing of non-tax revenue, increasing of tax state revenue, and then increasing of the purchasing power of fishermen as well. So that's for the national interest. Yeah, it's important as well. And I also mentioned about the potentiality of the economic asset of the marine fisheries, mangroves, coral reefs, and seagrass as well, is estimated $9.6 trillion US. But if we cannot pursue what we call as the healthy oceans, and then we cannot have wealthy oceans. So we need to keep healthy the oceans, then we can get the more value, economic value of the marine fisheries, mangroves, coral reefs, and seagrass as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Pauta, for the answer. So thank you very much for all the speakers today, and thank you everyone who have participated and asked questions. And we have learned about the scale of this global issue from Professor Wijaya's presentation, and Ambassador Thompson emphasized the importance of meeting SDG 14 goals, and we learned about the importance of regional collaboration and heard about some best practices from Mr. Per-Erik Berg. We also gathered some recommendations of concrete actions from Mr. Gunnar Stolfix and explored some opportunities and possibilities of forming a global coalition of action from Pak Mas Ahmad Santosa presentation. And also it is important to know that Ambassador Rudyard has emphasized how Indonesia will continue its strong stance and seriousness to fight against IUU fishing. And this is an initial discussion that hopefully can be followed by a further discussion on how to make the initiative more concrete. With better collaboration, we are optimistic that we can create a sustainably managed ocean for our generation and future generation. And now I will turn the session over back to the Master Chairman.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the end of the webinar on ending IUU fishing, exploring the opportunities of international coalition of action. We wish to thank all participants for their active involvement throughout the program, and we also hope that today's event gives you more insight on the issue of ending IUU fishing. Once again, thank you very much and have a good day.
Terima kasih Pak Febri, terima kasih Pak Ota, terima kasih
Thank you Pak Febri, Pak Syarif.
Terima kasih Pak Ota.
Thank you very much for
Thank you Pak Ota.
Excellency, Bapak-bapak.
Pak Dirjen, terima kasih.
Thank you.
Pak Dirjen.